Today on the show, we're going to be talking about Ender's Game, both the book and the movie. So Ender's Game is a very highly popular science fiction novel. It originally started off as a short story or novella in 1977 and then was later adapted into a full novel in 1985. It's won both the Hugo and the Nebula Awards, which is like the Oscars for science fiction novels. The movie itself is based off of Ender's Game, of the same name, but is also based off of Ender's Shadow, which is a book that is told from Bean's point of view, a different character's point of view. And apparently, the whole thing is really influenced by Isaac Asimov's Foundation trilogy, which is in my reading queue. I bought it, but I haven't read it yet. I'll get back to you on it later.
I bet you think you're so smart, huh? Having all these books.
Yeah, I'm so smart. I have all these books. I haven't read them all, but I'm working on it. There's not enough time in the day. I feel like that guy in the Twilight Zone where it's like, now I have all the time in the world to read all these books.
Ah, there's time enough at last.
I have a reading queue. I have like a huge queue. Or it's sad. I can't even get to all the books I want to read.
You're just a fake geek girl. That's what you are.
I just put pictures of dresses in this.
You bought these books at IKEA, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. They're my IKEA fake books. Another interesting fun fact about this book is that it is also suggested reading material for the Marine Corps. And there's been actually a lot of controversy around it because there are these child characters and there is all of this violence surrounding them and like the violence is justified. And there's a lot of moral gray areas going on in this book that I find really compelling and interesting.
So I'm not the first.
No, but you will be the last.
I'll do everything I can to win this war.
So I saw the movie, and I must say I was a bit disappointed. Oh, sorry. I know I'm going to be one of those people that's like, the book is so much better. But it is. It's one of those things. The movie felt, very shallow. It didn't have a lot of depth to it that was in the books. There was a lot of stuff that was stripped out of it. It kind of felt a little soulless in a lot of ways. Like they were just trying to hit those beats. And honestly, they're just trying to fit 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag. It's just not going to work as a movie. Even Orson Scott Card said that he never thought that this book was adaptable. And while I was reading it, I thought the same thing. I was like, this really should not be adapted into a movie. It's not for that sort of thing. What it should have been was a television show. This totally could have worked if it was a television show. It would have been, again, it's like, I know I keep saying this, but HBO, like if it was an HBO show, it would have been awesome. The problem is that movies and books are two very different mediums. And one isn't better than the other necessarily, but there's just certain things in books that you can do that you really can't do in movies and that won't ever work because movies are very formulaic. With movies, there's kind of a limited structure that they're working with because it's only an hour and a half long and they have to hit these beats and they have to keep it going the whole time and they don't have time to delve into these side things like a novel can. The structure that big Hollywood production movies have to abide by right now really don't work when you translate this sort of book.
You really don't see them as children, do you?
If you succeed,
You will be remembered as a hero.
I really hope that this movie doesn't deter anyone from reading the book and like they see it and they go, it's not that good, so I'm not going to read the book. Because it's not the case. I'm hoping that the opposite happens and that people see the movie and they're like, those are a lot of cool ideas. Maybe I'll read the book so I can get more. If you've never read the book at all and you watch the movie, I feel like you're going to feel like it was generally entertaining, but not necessarily compelling. Like there's a lot of interesting points that they're bringing up, but they're very, very shallow and it doesn't go into the depth that it could be. It raises a lot of interesting questions, but never really goes for it. It's worth watching, but it's not really emotionally impactful enough. The characters, you don't really connect to anyone. There's not really a real likable character in it necessarily. They even try to make Ender Wiggin a lot less controversial than he is in the book, but by doing that, they ended up making him not as anything. I don't know, very bland. The acting was okay. I didn't notice it one way or the other. It wasn't like great. It wasn't terrible. It's just kind of there.
He's abandoning his entire fleet. He's in command. There's no stopping him now.
In 3, 2, 1, now!
The movie movie didn't feel very inspired. It felt like it was kind of a director for hire type of gig. And what it really kind of feels like is they're trying to cash in on that Hunger Games fever that's going on. They're trying to take a similar idea where they're like, what's a book that's popular, that has like a main child character that's in with these other children, that also has violence included in it? That's Ender's Game, because like on the surface, it does fit all of those requirements. But the difference is that The Hunger Games is written for young adults. It is a very light read. It's a very easy read. You know, you can just breeze right through it, and easy reads make good movies. Whereas Ender's Game, even though it is suggested for younger readers, it's not really for younger readers. Like, as an adult reading it, I was totally into it. I didn't feel like I was reading a young adult book in any way, shape, or form. The themes are very adult. They're very, very dark. There's a lot of violence going on. Like not, like, people think, oh, Hunger Games is fucked up. Like, no, Ender's Game is fucked up. Like, there is some crazy shit going on in this book. And the book is just so good, you know? It's just so good, and it just doesn't work as a movie. And somebody on Twitter said to me, well, wouldn't you rather than make a movie than no movie at all? Like, don't you think? And it's like, no, I honestly don't think that. If you can't make it into a movie, then don't. You know, make it into a TV show. I don't know. Make Dune into a TV show. How many times do I have to say that? I'm going to keep saying it until somebody does it. I'm going to take a moment to kind of tell you some of the things from the book that I really, really liked. And so for those of you who are planning on reading the book and you don't want any spoilers, you should probably stop watching. But for those of you who watch the movie and you're probably not going to read the book, you should stick around so I can tell you why the book is so awesome. So in the movie, they tell you that he's this brilliant strategist, and you see a couple of scenes in the battle room where they're doing all their little battle room zero gravity stuff. And that's a lot of fun. Like, the battle room scenes were a lot of fun, but there just weren't very many of them in the movie because they didn't have time to fit a lot of them in. But in the book, Ender is in battle school for like 4 years. He's in there for 4 years, and he's doing that shit all the time. And he like gradually gets to the top, and you see him doing all these like different strategies and like getting smarter and smarter at it and like coming up with these crazy new things. And you see them pushing him like even harder. Like, every time he starts to get comfortable and starts like kicking ass, they'll change up all the rules on him. So he has to like come up with something else. And it's like they really just push him to his limit. And it's so dramatic. And you're just like, how is this fucking kid gonna keep going like this? And it's so cool. So much cooler. There's like so much more fun stuff in the battle room. Although it's sometimes when you're reading it, it is a little hard. She's like, what? I don't know what the hell this is. But it's a shame that in the movie they couldn't have done more stuff with the battle room because it's such a fun part of the story. I just really don't think that they really hit it home how smart these kids are and what a brilliant strategist Ender is. I thought it was really smart that in the movie they have the strategy that he uses in the battle room to win his big climactic battle, and he essentially uses the same strategy later to beat the Formics. But they really should have done more to illustrate that he was so like strategically genius. Again, it's just they tell and not show. Balls out spoilers going on here. Okay, we're talking about the ending of the movie. So if you haven't read the book and you haven't seen the movie, then just move on. The book ending and the movie ending are a bit different. And the book ending is so much better. Oh my gosh. It's so cathartic. Like, in the end of the book, you find out that the only reason the Formics were attacking the planet and attacking us humans was because they didn't understand that we were a sentient race because they couldn't communicate with us telepathically because they're a telepathic hive mind. So they weren't aware that there are other races that don't have telepathic hive minds. But once they figured out their mistake, they retreated and like left us alone. But we didn't know that. And we were like, well, we gotta go get them. And so we go destroy their fucking homeworld because we can't communicate with them. And the whole war is a miscommunication. Whoa. And that's so true. Like, that's really, like, such a powerful statement about war, where it's, like, really just a fucking big fucking understanding between people. That really wasn't the ending in the movie. They chose to go with a more simplistic theme of, you know, they start the movie out with a quote where, you know, when I understand an enemy, then I can destroy them, but in that moment, I also love them. And they kind of brought that back in the end, where it's like he feels bad for committing genocide, and he wants to help the alien queen. And, I mean, that also happens in the book, but that's not the point of the book. You know, that's not the point of the whole thing. So, again, I just feel like this movie kind of scratches the surface, but never really just goes for it and, like, goes all the way. Another thing that was in the movie that they really didn't go into, but they should have because it's so awesome, is Peter and Valentine, Ender Wiggen's brother and sister. There's like 3 children. They're all crazy brilliant. And that's something that the movie really didn't do a great job of conveying, is that these children are not just smart for kids. They're smarter than adults. Like, they are smarter than everyone. And in the books, there is the spotlight on Peter and Valentine and what they're doing on Earth while Ender is in battle school. And it's so awesome and interesting because Peter decides that he wants to be the fucking ruler of Earth and, like, unite Earth. And he's this crazy sociopath, but he's like, I know I'm a sociopath. But because I'm a sociopath, I would be perfectly qualified to rule the world because only a sociopath could do it. But I could do it really well because I'm so smart and it would actually be better for everyone. And Valentine gets on board with it. They start using these online names of Demosthenes and Locke. They start like manipulating everyone on the nets, which also is really cool because the internet was not going on when this book was written, and the fact that he predicted it was pretty cool. Science fiction, just saying, science fiction's awesome. But yeah, they have these like online personalities where they act like they're older than they are, and they like start talking about all this political stuff and start manipulating all these countries and all this stuff. And like Peter does in fact become the hegemon of fucking Earth at some point, which is really cool. And it's really awesome that he starts out as this villain and then he ends up becoming a sympathetic character, and that Valentine ends up like empathizing with him because Ender's gone, and now that Ender's gone, she can have a relationship with him, and she's really interesting, and none of it's in the friggin' movie. That was really sad. They don't talk about the fact that religion's banned on Earth. They don't talk about the fact that there's like 3 ruling factions on Earth because they've been attacked by the Formex. There's really none of the Earth stuff. None of the really cool political Earth stuff that's going on. That's really disappointing, because another thing that I loved in the ending was that, as you know, Ender becomes the speaker for the dead, and I guess it's not in the movie. God damn, they didn't really put anything in the movie. He becomes the speaker of the dead, where he writes this book that's all about the Formex, and it's like he gives it to Earth so everyone can remember them, because he feels so bad for what he did, so he becomes the speaker for the dead. And it's so awesome because Peter ends up like contacting them later, and he's like, you can empathize and love the Formex who've killed like millions of people, who've started 2 wars on Earth, and yet you can't write a book about me, you know? And it's like, that's such a good point. It's like he was sad. Peter was sad. He made Peter sad. The reason this should have been a TV show is because it takes place over a longer amount of time. Ender is supposed to be like 5 years old or maybe 6 years old when it starts. He's in battle school for like 4 years, and then he like goes to command school and like starts doing his whole command school thing. But it's you really see him grow up a whole lot. Like by the end of it, I think it takes place over like 5 years or something like that. And they can't do that in a movie because then you have to change your actor every so often because kids grow so much. But it would totally work in a show. I mean, just look at Game of Thrones, because those kids are just shooting right up, you know? I mean, it would be fantastic. And that's another thing. It's like, because it's a movie, they can't have kids that young doing it. But when you can't have kids that young acting and doing all this like really crazy stuff, it's just not as impactful. It's very, very impactful when you're reading about a 6-year-old kid, like, accidentally killing another kid. Like, that's like, whoa, shit. Like, that's crazy. But they can't show that in a movie, and it kind of sucks.
We should tell him the truth.
Why?
When it's over, what will be left of the boy?
What does it matter if there's nothing left at all?
Ender's Game was a super impactful book for me personally. I found a lot of messages in there that I really felt were very insightful and useful for me. And I'm sure anyone who reads it is going to find things for themselves as well. So final thoughts, definitely read the book, rent the movie. I wouldn't go out and see it in the theaters. And also, feel free to subscribe to my channel, like my videos, follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And I'd also like to take a quick moment to tell you about No Comment November. It's happening right now. I'm really enjoying it. It's fantastic. Comments might be back in December or not. We'll see. And that's it. Comic books enough lately, so we're going to talk about them right now. Let's get into some monthly ongoing series that are out right now that you can like pick up and start like doing it. If you're interested